into the Crosstown Baseball Show here on June 19, 2023. Happy Juneteenth to everyone out there. And welcome into another episode of the Crosstown Baseball Show. We are talking relocation. It's coming for the Oakland Athletics. They are moving to Las Vegas, and we're going to talk about what that means for Chicago, which really means nothing. But you know what? We're going to talk about potential relocation in Chicago. Is that even possible? What does that look like? All that jazz. And I know someone who has very strong opinions about it, and that's my co-host, Anthony Romanelli. Romanelli, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well today. I'm not going to lie. I wanted to talk about this for two reasons. One, um, like you, I am also a ballpark nerd. I love when new ballparks are released and renderings and photos. And we'll take a look at some of that as the Oakland Athletics, as they prepare to move to Las Vegas, released some photos of their proposed ballpark. And two, I was just in Las Vegas for a work conference, and I love Las Vegas, and it just had me thinking about all these things regarding Oakland's move to Vegas. But before we get there, folks, just a quick reminder. We're doing a lot of things on YouTube now, a lot of visual things. So if you are not following the show on YouTube, please make sure you go to YouTube, look up the Crosstown Baseball Show, subscribe, like, follow us, share, do what you need to do to spread the word about what we're doing here on this show. And it's the best way to really watch the show now that we're doing more things live video. So go ahead and do that. And of course, you can always listen to us where you get all of your podcasts, whether that's Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it. Before we get into any of the Oakland A's stuff and that whole horror story, let's talk about the Cubs and the Sox. Let's just do a check-in real quick. Romanelli, the Cubs have had a mixed bag lately. I mean, this last 6 games, it looks like they've won, what was it, 5 of 6, which is pretty impressive given what they've been doing lately. What's your read on them?
It's nice to at the beginning of the year, we thought that the Cubs would come out strong and the Sox wouldn't, and the Cubs didn't, and the Sox did. And now the shoe's on the other foot, and the Cubs are streaking upward, and the White Sox are streaking downward. So I'm happy about it. So 5 of the last 6, and as of this moment, they're still 5 games out. 5 games under 500, but only like 3.5 or 4 games out of first in this wonderfully tough National League Central division. God, it's awful.
Well, how do you? I got to ask you. You mentioned the division. What do you make of the Reds winning 8 straight?
Well, I'm happy for them. I remember India last year being quite the stud as a rookie, and then the new kid that they brought up is just tearing it up. I can't even think of his name.
Ellie De La Cruz.
Thank you. He's got the fastest first to third time in all of baseball this year. And they're just on an absolute tear. They brought Joey Votto back just today. So they're making an impact. They're at least trying to make a run. What are they in second place? Just 2 games behind? Yeah. No, half game behind Milwaukee. We'll see. I mean, the whole division's a joke.
I know. But if you would have told me that here we are, middle of June, getting to the end of June, that Cincinnati would be a half game out and St. Louis would be 8 games back and one of the worst records in baseball, I would have not bet money on that.
No way. Not a chance. As we thought, Milwaukee would be on top, and I said they're always a pain, and they're always going to be hanging around. Counsell's a good manager. He knows what he's doing. He's got just enough talent to keep them at the top of the division. I think this winning streak by Cincinnati came out of nowhere. They've literally won 8 in a row. Prior to that, they were nothing. They're still 20 runs under from a differential perspective, negative 20 as a total team. So this whole thing is a flash in the pan. I feel like this whole year is an anomaly, just the way the division is, and just the way everybody's playing. Like you said, to have St. Louis, 10 games back or 8 games back or whatever, and 13 games under 500, Nobody saw that coming. You expected with the bat of Contreras being added to that lineup in St. Louis, you would have thought that he would have been a solid addition. He got benched. He was DHing, and now he's not. He's not doing much of anything. There was a meme going around not too long ago with Contreras sitting on the bench with a smashed cooler. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of encapsulating St. Louis's season. The Cubs are still. I'm not going to say they're in it. They're still 5 games under 500. Both the Cubs and Sox, without even looking at the Sox, I think they have darn near close to the same record. And
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of nothing going on either side of the city. I mean, the few bright spots for the Cubs, you've got Morel, who's again tearing it up. The defense with Swanson and Nico has been amazing. Outside of that, I would say, I mean, actually, what, 5 of this? So let me think. 3 of the 5 wins, they had more than 10 runs. So that's good. I mean, when for a team that, if you remember at the beginning of the year, when they were leading the division with the most runners left on base at what, 270 or 275, something like that. It's nice to see them bring those Ducks home, I guess.
Right.
So that's good. There are a few tiny little bright spots, but not enough to get me excited. Again, I said from the beginning of the year, if they play perfect baseball, they'll be at 500. And they're not back. They're not there yet. They have gotten Kyle Hendricks back, so that's a plus. Tyon is still not. He's still not doing it for me. They brought Wisniewski back, but he's not doing much. It's nice. I'll be honest with you. To see Bellinger at first, that makes me happy.
Yes.
I think he should stay there, and they bring up Pete Crow Armstrong. I have very, very mixed feelings about Pete Crow Armstrong. I know he's tearing it up down there, but he reminds me, and the hype with him reminds me of, if I go back to Corey Patterson, it's the same kind of hype. He's this tiny little guy who's tearing it up. And I hope I'm wrong. And when they bring him up, I mean, he's a center fielder by trade. The Cubs don't have a true center fielder. So if you want to bring him up, okay, bring him up. You're 5 games under 500. See what happens with him. Let him get a half season in under his belt and see how he does. And leave Bellinger. I love Bellinger at first. I love him there. I hope he stays there.
I hope so too. I think it gives them a little more flexibility in the outfield, whereas they never had any for those like Pico Armstrong, like you said, Brennan Davis, of course, though he kind of fell off a little bit. I think there's still some potential in his bat and his glove. I kind of want to know what you think about Stroman, and particularly because he had came out and said, hey, he's very interested in signing an extension. Doesn't look like the front office, Jed and Carter Hawkins are interested in extending him right now, but this is kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A sign of what maybe is to come. Because if they don't extend their ace and they trade him at the deadline, or whatever, let his contract run out, what are they really trying to do in the next 2 years? Like, you're either signing him and plugging in a few of those holes, or you're letting him and others like him walk and bringing up a Pete Crow Armstrong, and you're just going to let these young guys play for 3 years. Like, which one is it? Please tell us.
I think they're going to sign him. I do.
Good.
I do. Here's why. You signed Dansby for 7 years. You signed Nico for 3 or 4, or for 3. You signed Happ for 4, or the other way around. I can't remember. I think Happ for 4 and Nico for 3. So you've got your core, which is something I talked about at the very beginning. Are they going to have a core? So they have Swanson and Horner up the middle. You've got Happ in left field. You've got Hendricks, who's on the tail end of his career. So where's your ace? Where's your true ace? Your true ace is Stroman, who's your guy. There we go. He's your guy, and he's killing it. And I'm super happy that he's killing it. He's he would currently be the National League starter for the All-Star game, the way he's pitching. Right now, at
Yeah.
this very moment, he's the number one pitcher in baseball, all of the National League, I believe. If that's the case, how do you let him walk? And what message do you send to the Cubs? That you're all about the money and you no longer care about winning a title. Because you don't have a solid, and again, I had said Stroman, Steele, Hendricks. You've got a solid 1, 2, 3 in there. Okay. If Steele stays healthy, he's your number 2. Hendricks is your number 3, and then your 4 and your 5. We'll get by. Are they playoff bound?
No, but even with that rotation, you talk about those 3 guys. I do think Hayden Wesneski, don't write him off yet.
No.
I do think there's something there, and if he's your 4, like, we're in business.
Yeah, and if Taillon can get his act together instead of just throwing straight fastballs, we'll see. That's a really good point. If now, I said this on my own personal Facebook page that, Jed is mad that Stroman aired the dirty laundry about going public, and Jed wasn't happy. Well, look at your record, Jed. You made Chris Bryant cry on national television. You told Rizzo no, who was shocked. You basically, and you had Happ and Contreras at the end of their contracts embrace one another because they were fearful of being traded. So, or let go or whatever. Those guys have such passion for that team and that city, and for all 4 of your core guys to just get kind of crapped on does not send a good message from the top down. It just doesn't. Now, I'll give an aside in a second because this hit me this weekend. Where was I going with this? When I was listening to the San Diego, who were they playing over the weekend? San Diego and Tampa. I was listening and watching to that game. And the White Sox broadcaster, what's his name? Jason Benedetti?
Jason Benetti.
I was listening and watching him on that San Diego Tampa Bay game, which immediately brought me to Len Casper in my head, who I still love listening to, even though he's on the South Side. Now, that tells me deep down, that still tells me something about the Cubs as an organization. It does. I'm sorry. No one purposely leaves the Cubs. I don't believe. Like, you had the greatest gig in all of baseball, I believe, to be the Chicago Cubs play-by-play television announcer with one of the largest markets in the country. How do you leave that? How do you leave that job to go to the South Side for radio? I'm sorry. That sense, and I know Len Casper said it was always a dream of mine to, do radio and all that stuff. I don't know. I mean, I always wanted to do radio too, but if I had the chance to stay on a national stage if you just look at numbers alone between the White Sox and Cubs, and this isn't I'm not talking about favoritism or South Side, North Side, whatever. Len Casper took a step down when it comes to exposure. He just did.
Yeah.
Now, is he truly doing what's making him happy? He may be, because he has enough money that, I'll just do radio. Who knows?
Sure.
But I say that to lead up to the Stroman conversation. If they do not sign him, that's just another piece of the puzzle showing me that the Ricketts don't care. And it's going to be hard for me to stay. And I've been a Cubs fan my whole life. I'm not going anywhere. But man, you've let and I get actually why the Bryant thing, but the Rizzo thing, Rizzo's hitting out of his mind still in New York. And yes, it's a shorter porch, but he's still contributing. I think he's got 15 home runs or something. He's doing pretty well in New York and like 270 average or higher. I don't know how you let Stroman go. I don't know how. He's your number one. He's the number one. How do you let him go? But the other side of me truly believes, and God, I hope I'm right, that they're not gonna. I think Jed may maybe hopefully I hope he eats crow and they sign him. How? But here's the other thing: Stroman in his contract, it's 1 year for player option. His first year is the player is his option. Then the last
Right.
two are the Cubs. So if he decides to go because they don't want him, then good for him.
Right.
And he's got to go. And good for him and go win your ring. And shame on the Cubs.
It I'll say this is knowing the fan base, knowing that Stroman wants to be a Cub, combined with a lot of what this fan base has had to experience in the last few years. If the front office does not sign Stroman, it would be a colossal failure on their part, probably the biggest in the last few years, given the circumstances. And I think fans, this would be the final straw for a lot of people.
I think so too. Especially because you heard Hap saying, I want to be a Cub. You heard um, Nico say, I want to be a Cub. These guys verbally say it. Now, Stroman has verbally said it. You know that the Cubs are notorious for not doing deals during the year. Fine. So um, I would say that Jed's only response would have been, if you follow our pattern, we don't talk about contracts during the year. That's just how it goes. And
Sure.
don't even bring up Stroman dissing him or the Cubs.
Right.
You just don't even bring it up because by him bringing that up, well, he didn't like it. Well, tough because look at your record in the past. You
Y-
had guys who want to stay there.
You know what's fascinating? You know what I love about all of this? And I look at this from a business standpoint here for a second is for how much front office people give shit to the players for speaking up and doing all of that. Like, let's not forget that none of these front office folks that also sign multi-year deals, almost all of them, we do not know what their salaries are. But with the players, it's all out there. Contracts are talked about very openly in the business. So then when a player does speak up and say something, whoa, 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 shut up, shut your mouth, don't say anything. No, no.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I totally agree with you. I remember hearing something when Theo was on the up and up when he had signed with the Cubs. It was upwards of 10 million a year.
Yeah,
Um, so I would guess that Jed is somewhere in the 5 and up range. Would be my
yeah,
guess. That would be my
probably.
guess. And then you're going to I could be completely off. Who knows? But it would be interesting to find that out.
Ugh, what are you gonna do? So you mentioned something that is a really nice segue into the White Sox and what they're experiencing right now because the NL Central and the AL Central, as we talked about last week and many weeks before, is just a shit sandwich situation right now for both the AL and the NL Central. I mean, just to put
You're
it in
right.
perspective, from a White Sox perspective, if the White Sox with their 31-42 record were in any other division in the American League, they would be in last place. Um, the fact that they're in fourth place in the AL Central is remarkable because the Minnesota Twins leading the Central are at 500 at 36-36. That's just I don't even know what to say to that anymore. I've kind of at a loss for words. Um, I think the Cubs over the last week certainly going 5 out of 6. I don't want to say promising is too strong of a word,
No.
but I think here and there they're going to have some of those hot weeks. That's just going to happen, followed by pretty poor weeks. The Sox, I wish they had a hot streak or just like they are just win a game, lose a game, win 2 games, lose 3 games, win two. Like they are picking up right where they left off last year, which ultimately last year ended in a 581-81 season. And they are just, treading water enough to stay relevant in a shitty division. I mean, they're 5.5 games out. At one point, they were 3.5 or 4 games out last week, and of course, they did not take advantage of that. So I I believe what is going to happen, which is what I talked about earlier, which I fear, is with the Sox, they're going to do just enough every week to kind of stay within that 4 to 6 games out of first place because we're in a shitty division, so we have a chance all year long. They're going to do very little at the trade deadline. They're going to ride the hands that they have, and we're going to end up at the end of the season right back where we started in 2022, which was an 81 season. I anticipate that will happen.
I would say you're close. I can't believe that either team's going to be that far off. I'm going to guess the Cubs are 5 to 7 games under 500 when it's all said and done. The Sox might be closer, but interestingly, literally 2 hours ago when I was watching the news, there were the tiniest of rumblings that maybe Grafal should be let go. Literally, it was on. I was like, "Are you joking?" The team is exactly the same. The only thing they did was change managers.
Right.
So nothing's changed. I don't care how much of a match you put under a player's, behind. If they're not producing, you can't just keep rotating managers in and out. That again, I'll say it the same thing I said before. Like this is on Han the same way it's on Jed, before it's on Ross, and before it's on Grafal.
Right. Correct.
And so you're at least I'm at the point now where if I'm a White Sox fan or a Cubs fan, I'm not looking at, and again, I said to you before that Ross is going to end up being the fall guy, and I give him 2 years. And Han, now you can't give Pedro just a year. You can't. That's just not fair to anybody. But does Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams have to go? Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The same way, like I understand people get comfortable in their jobs at times, but the White Sox have had nothing happen, since 2005. The Cubs, at least, there have been playoff runs, and the whole 2015, 14, and 15 and on, that 5, 6, 7 year span, a 5-year span really was pretty good. And now they're kind of, resetting, and I get it. But they've got enough. But yeah, so back to the Sox. They need to, I don't know, they need to shake it. It's not Grafal. I like him, actually.
I do too. I like everything he brings to the table. I think he's got the right attitude and the right approach. I think there's two things, one of which you already mentioned, is now that we're almost through June here, it's very clear that the front office didn't build this team the right way, and we can loop ownership into that as well and not investing in the right parts of the team. But two, and maybe either equally or even more, is the players. Like we talked about this before, where you have people like Eloy Jimenez, Luis Robert, these big superstars that just haven't played up to where they should be now that they're 4 or 5 years into 3 or 4 years into their major league experience. And not to mention, you have leaders, quote unquote, leaders of this team who aren't stepping up, whether it's in a leadership standpoint or with their performance. For example, I hate to bash the guy, Tim Anderson. I think he needs to change of scenery. I don't think he belongs on this team anymore.
It's very interesting you said that. Two things. You almost echoed exactly what Han said in his interview this afternoon. Han was talking specifically about how the players need to step it up a little bit, and Tim Anderson's name came up right out of Rick Hahn's mouth. So I don't disagree with you at all. I have said forever that I know he is a great athlete, but he has never, in my mind, lived up to the potential that he has. Between being oft injured and more of a presence than more of a name than a presence at the plate, or more of a name than a somebody who's like, well, I'm not going to get on because I know if I hit it too short, it's automatically out. Like he's not become the impact player he should have.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And right now, this is why I decided we're going to talk about relocation and ballparks today, because you know what, quite frankly, this has been a very disappointing season on both sides of town. And I think we both came into this thinking, and I'm saying this thinking, oh my God, Anthony, it's only going to be the end of June. Calm down. This is not even halfway through the season. But we walked into this thinking there was some hope and we would see some impact performances, and we have maybe here and there, but this may be one of those seasons that by the end of now that we're at the end of June, I'm thinking it's a wash, which really sucks to be in that place. It's a wash, but it's not just a wash in a good division. It's a wash because you suck so bad you can't even win in a bad division. That's worse.
That is worse. And the thing, and I almost posted something on this. I was like, oh, forget it. But the thing that and again, this is so stupid and so trivial from my perspective. I
Yeah.
was watching the Cubs game the other day, and they had cut into the grass for the All Star game. They're like, vote Cubs.
I
They,
saw that.
I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're underperforming like crazy, and you've got the balls or whatever to be like, vote Cubs in the grass. Like, come on, like play baseball.
Yeah.
Just play. That's all I care about. Just play. Just play the game. I don't care about vote Cubs. You know what? No. Just no. And I would love to know whose idea that was.
I'll tell you what, no Cub is going to make the All-Star team other than Stroman, and we all know that it's not picked by the fans. So, good luck to everyone else.
Right. Exactly. I would say the only two guys that are making an impact on me, newer guys from the bullpen anyway, are Kay and Merriweather.
Yeah.
They're doing pretty well. I'm happy with their performances. I think they ran out Kay, or was it Merriweather? One too many times this last week. I think he was out 4 or 5 days in a row or whatever.
Uh,
Um, but I'm pretty happy with how they've been doing. But again, collectively overall this season, yeah, I would say, yeah, it's a wash because, I mean, Cincinnati, like you said, Cincinnati's won eight and what they've won 8 in a row, 8-2 in their last 10. So now all of a sudden they're in second place. But unless the Cubs do something like that, you know, they've got nothing. And no one fears the Cubs. No one fears. Maybe they're fearing Morel because he's back. He's found his groove again. But you're not fearing a whole team. You're not fearing anybody. Maybe you're fearing Stroman. That's it.
yeah.
You're hoping to do well against Steele. If you beat Steele, then you know you've got a chance to win the series because you're facing Hendricks, and then you're 4-5. Like, come on. There's just no. And again, I love them. I love them all, but they're not performing. They don't have a third baseman. I don't know.
Well, not fun times. No one's shaking in their
No,
boots for either one of these teams. They're taking their boots off, putting on damn shoes, and dancing all over us. That's what
right?
they're doing. So we'll continue to follow it for better or for worse, folks. But I wanted to take a break from regular Cubs and Sox conversation and talk a little bit about what's happening around the league, specifically something very big. It is not often that a team is added to the league. It's not often that a team relocates. It's not often that a team builds a whole new stadium from the ground up. And that's exactly what the Oakland Athletics are doing. Now, before we talk about that, I mentioned right out of the gate that I was in Vegas this past week for a work conference. And I got to tell you, Romanelli, I had a really cool experience. I stayed at, first off, I love Vegas. It is one of my favorite places. There's the energy there. It's really just an oasis in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the mountains that I love. And it's just a really cool place. And particularly when I was there this past week, I stayed at the Westgate and a little more north of the strip, and at the north end of the strip, I should say. And what they have there is like a self-proclaimed world's largest sports book, and I know you love this, okay, but I'm going to talk about it. So one of the things that they have is the world's largest sports book, or at least they dubbed it that. And so during the evenings when I was done with my conference and I was grabbing dinner, they had a nice little like pub grill that I grabbed dinner, and then I would sit basically along this bar that faced the sports book. And this sports book, I mean, imagine a football field length screen that is just broken up into 5 different. I had 5 MLB games. I had hockey, Stanley Cup hockey, random shit on the side. It was the coolest experience to sit there. And I so much so that I was actually watching the first half of that Stanley Cup, the final Stanley Cup game. I was
Yeah.
there in Vegas that night when they won. The Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup. But I'm watching there and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, there is no better place to have a bustling kind of sports industry. All of these years, Las Vegas went without any large sports teams, and just recently, new hockey franchise with the Golden Knights. The Oakland Raiders move to Los Angeles, and now the Oakland Athletics are moving to Las Vegas, and now the Athletics are moving to Las Vegas. So what a missed opportunity all these years. And now I'm sitting here thinking, what a cool place to follow sports and be a sports fan.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I'm not anti-betting. I'm just anti-draft. I'm just anti-DraftKings right in front of a national landmark.
Oh, I know.
That's all. As a matter of fact, I can picture. I have a buddy who, the last time he went to Vegas, took pictures of that very betting board. That it's just gigantic. It's overwhelming, but oddly cool and all that stuff. And again, you could bet on anything in Vegas, and it is shocking that they haven't had baseball, or I'm sorry, other major sports there for so long. Where was I going to go next? To that point about Oakland leaving, the A's leaving Oakland. Have you seen what the fans did at like a reverse? What do you even call it?
Like a reverse boycott?
Yeah, and like 30,000 people have shown up for a handful of games in a row to be like, hey, this isn't us. It's not the fans. It's you. It's ownership. It's
right.
100% ownership. And so that was really cool to see, actually. That was really, really cool to see. And I feel bad for the Oakland fans that this is happening.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Before we talk about that more, I wanted to show you actually, let's see what we have here. So while we're talking about the sports book, you mentioned a picture, and I'll show the folks exactly what the sports book looks like. That right there is what it's a big boy. I mean, that thing is huge.
It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's in like a building the size of like 3 like Olympic sized gymnasiums. It's just crazy.
And we wonder why people hate America. Right?
Oh, that's good. That's good. But you are right. So I want to come back to what you were talking about, because what you talked about is key, is that there's 2 parts of this, and I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge both. Is number one, it is going to be cool that the team is in Vegas and then their sports industry is growing there, and we'll talk about that. Having said that, the Oakland A's are a historic franchise out of the Bay Area, and I can empathize with the fans and how just furious they must be that, one, the owner didn't invest into this team, and 2, that they didn't fight hard enough to keep that historic team there.
Hold on. My mind's all over the place. Like, I watching Vita Blue, Raleigh Fingers, Dennis Eckersley. I loved watching them on NBC on Saturdays when the White Sox would play Oakland, or whenever NBC was holding an Oakland game, or even watching Reggie play before he became a Yankee.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, those are just great. That's like the history behind that franchise is amazing. And to lose that as a fan has got to be devastating. I consider myself fortunate in that we live in such a big market that we're never, realistically, losing either franchise.
Yeah.
I don't think. Now early in the season, the White Sox were like, they had the signs up and they're like, sell the team, like Jerry, sell the team. I still think, from a relocation perspective, now, if the White Sox relocate, you know where I want them. In the Bear Stadium. Knock it down.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant in a whole other city. I was going to ask you about that.
No. So I do think, now, the real question is, would true White Sox fans, would they go as far north as Lakeshore Drive to see a White Sox game.
Why wouldn't you? I would think you would. You know why you would is number one, the atmosphere around it's going to be better because if they're going to build a ballpark, because this is now just the new business model with ballpark stadiums, whatever you call it. No one now just builds a ballpark.
Right.
It's an entertainment district. It's
Right.
hotels. It's yada yada yada. It would be a destination, and I say this knowing if there's any franchise that would f this up, it would be the White Sox. But having said that, that's what it would be. So I would absolutely sign up for that.
Yeah, I would just be curious. I would be. I would be curious to. You would actually gain. I believe you would gain more fans closer to the downtown area. They would just because you can just roll over and go to a Sox game then.
Absolutely.
If you live that close, if you live anywhere that close, you can just roll over. Like the Bears, you can't just roll over and go to a Bears game because there's only one a week. Or one every other week, whatever. There's 16 games. There's only 8. Think about that. Think about the investment. Think about the investment for a new stadium for any football team.
Oh,
It's only 8 games a year, $1 billion,
right.
or whatever the hell the Bears are going to do. And I know I'm getting off track regarding a new stadium, but think about that. But at least from a baseball perspective, you're bringing fans to the park 80 times a year, 81 times a year.
Right.
And then again, if it's
Right.
enclosed, then it's year round. And who knows what they could do.
Well, I want to come back and talk about the Sox in a moment because it raises a really interesting question for both the Cubs and the Sox. When we go back and talk about the soon to be Las Vegas Athletics, which all signs point to the fact that they will remain the Athletics, which if I had to bet, I assume they will.
I do too.
But for those of you who may be wondering when we talk about the Athletics, reason why it popped in my brain is actually while I was in Vegas, I got the news, as we all did, that the Nevada legislator gave final approval actually last Wednesday for funding for the public funding of a portion of what they propose would be a $1.5 billion stadium with a retractable roof, and we'll take a look at that here in a second. So this is happening. Like there was a lot of concern about, where are they going to put the stadium? How's it going to be funded? Or is the state of Nevada and the city of Las Vegas going to accept this? Well, it looks like everyone's, welcoming them with open arms. So it's basically as good as gold that this is going to happen. So that stadium that they're approving funding on, I wanted to show a few pics of what this stadium looks like. And I want to talk about what we think about it because it is a doozy. It's a big boy. It is a big boy. Let me see here. One thing I wanted to do. Hold on one second, actually. Why is this not working?
Could you imagine if the Vegas Athletics eventually make the playoffs and you get to go to a hockey game, a football game, and a baseball game in the same week or two?
How about that? How about that?
In Vegas.
Yes. Right. All right, here we go, folks. So this is a bird's eye view of this is a view from, if it would actually show up, I swear my computer's working, folks. For those of you who are on YouTube, you're going to want to actually follow us, obviously, on YouTube for stuff like this. But this is a view of the ballpark looking south. So that main street there is Las Vegas Boulevard. That's where the strip is. You're seeing in this picture at the bottom left, there's Grand MGM. Over here on the top right is Mandalay Bay, Excalibur below that, Luxor between. If you've been to Vegas, you're familiar with this intersection here. And then, of course, there is the stadium. So we see this nice little kind of walkway stairs up from the corner. This nice little terrace area. This is a clear retractable roof. And so what we can do is we will go ahead and take a look at another shot that I like. This is actually from the street level, which I think is pretty cool. So with this street level view, we can go ahead and we can look at what this would look like from a street level, which is pretty neat. Again, looking straight at MGM Grand, and then what that looks like from the street level.
Yeah,
It, I mean, I think the exterior really fits into a Vegas feel.
absolutely. Um, I'm curious, just again, from a logistics standpoint, I'm not even a logistics person, but I've been to Vegas enough to be like, how's their public transportation? Do they have any, or is that just going to be a nightmare to get in and out of there?
That's a
Um,
really good question. So what I will say is they obviously have a bus system. One of the things that I use when I go, which is great, is they actually have a monorail, believe it or not, that goes from downtown Vegas or
well,
a
that's
little,
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
straight
yeah,
down
yeah.
to with the last stop being at MGM Grand. So that last MGM Grand stop would probably be the stop at the stadium.
Yeah, yep. I wonder where the teams will stay. Probably in the MGM. Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
I wonder how uh, the Vegas Golden Knights have done it all these years. How do you live
Right?
in How do you live in Vegas and not be poor?
No.
Like I would be like, just I mean that's why like I'm just like bet $10 on this, $10 on this, and all of a sudden I'm in a Gamblers Anonymous.
Right.
I know
These are
myself.
at least you know your limits, right? That's
Yep.
great. So last picture, folks, which I think we all really want to see is what the inside of this bad boy looks like. So the inside of the ballpark here looks like this. So here, can I just be honest? I don't love this.
I don't either.
It's not enough.
Agreed.
It
Agreed.
it really looks like, and I don't mean to bash the A's and the A's fans here, but this is literally what I think about it. It looks like the Coliseum, but
It's exactly
with
what I was thinking.
just shinier.
Yep. It's,
Like we
your fans are way, way, way too far away. You're going to spend all this money, get your fans up close, or at least make it worth their while. Look at that. Look at how far they are away. If you're looking at a game, if that ball gets by the catcher, you're running from first to third, maybe even all the way home. I'm just kidding.
yeah.
But, but my God, again, it doesn't. The skyline, I'm okay with barely, but it doesn't look baseball. It doesn't look uh, fan friendly at
No,
all.
it is just like a lipstick on a pig sort of scenario when you look at this compared to the Coliseum. And I almost like when you look at the outfield here, like I am really big in ballparks to the view, right? Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
the skyline here is great to see. That's
yeah.
New York, and to see that and to see MGM. I like that. That's great. But when we get to this part here, like the beyond the right beyond the outfield wall, and it's just more seats, and there's no like, it's not dynamic, and just this one like odd little scoreboard video screen to the right. Like you couldn't make that a little more appealing.
No, but I just thought of something.
Oh God,
And
what?
no, no. Think about this. I would bet money that you and I, could both get on a plane and get to a game in Vegas, in the stadium, for less than it costs to go to a Cubs game. Because the flights to Vegas are so cheap all the time, right? They're like
Yeah,
50 bucks, right?
yeah,
50 bucks
maybe.
up a monorail, right?
Yeah,
50
yeah.
bucks a monorail all the way to the game, buy a bleacher seat, or buy, in the 400s or whatever, way the heck up for another 40 bucks. And I've gone to a Vegas game for under $100, where I can't go to a Cubs game for under $100.
Yeah,
Think
yeah.
about that for just a second. Like it just hit
That's
me this very
nuts.
second. Because
I'll
especially those that have like reward points, those people that fly Southwest all the time,
Oh yeah.
they could go to Vegas for free. Think about that for a second. Oh my God.
Sign me up.
Could you imagine the comp packages that they're putting together right now?
Oh geez. Sign me up.
Think about all the hotels putting all the comp packages together. The amount of money that's going to be coming into Vegas in the next 25, 50 years.
Well, not only that, but as much as they really kind of screwed over the fans, for lack of a better word. They're going to make some money. Like, right, this
Oh my
team,
God.
this always cries poor. This is a great business opportunity for them, and I hope that ownership over there with the A's takes this as an opportunity to actually put a competitive team on the field, because there's no way in hell the league's going to be satisfied with them giving them their blessing to move here and them not competing every year. Nope, there's no excuse for that any longer.
Correct. Completely agree. I will be curious what they do. I'll be curious from a player health perspective, because Vegas is so hot. Um, how much and what the rules are regarding the roof being closed and open, because it's like 100+ degrees in Vegas. So are
Yeah.
they really going to play with that roof open, and then they're going to close it and they're going to be like, well, that's not fair, because there will be teams that will bark against the A's. Well, we have to play in 100. Why don't they? Well,
well,
80 of their games are in Vegas. That's why.
right. Build a retractable roof. Don't complain to me.
Right.
I think when it comes to these teams and in traditionally hotter cities that don't have retractable, I mean, that's on you. Don't blame anyone but yourself, right?
Yep.
I mean, all is fair game, I think.
Yep. No, I agree with you. I mean, Tampa's enclosed and whatever. I was just kind of overthinking the whole thing, but shocking. But I am excited. I am very excited for Vegas to get a team. I would like to, and we will go to a game. We'll
Yes.
definitely go to a game because it's only going to cost $100. Jesus.
Right.
I got to get my Southwest card going.
There you go. Yeah. I
Mm.
have my Southwest card too. That's how I get my points. How my flights are all Southwest. But I'll say this is with all the good things going on in Vegas, I may just adopt the Golden Knights, and I may just adopt the Raiders. And if the Sox continue to piss me off, Jerry, be warned. Be warned.
Yeah, I think you have a legitimate beef there.
I don't know. But yeah, so when it comes to the A's, will be exciting to see what exactly they do. We'll follow this and continue to give updates. It's something I'm sure you and I will talk about because we're very interested. Um, you know, Cubs obviously aren't going anywhere. The Cubs have been part of the city from their foundation. The White Sox, I don't know if many people even know this, but the White Sox truly flirted with leaving the city in the late 80s in 1986. And I mean, they were being courted by Denver, by Florida, by, I believe, Phoenix was one of them at the time before they got the Diamondbacks. So, I mean, Jerry has been prone to, and the jury's still out on whether he was using this whole debacle of threat to relocation as leverage. Some say yes, some say no. There was a very serious offer for them to move to Tampa in the late 80s. And then obviously through that whole debacle became Guaranteed Rate Field, what we know today, or New Comiskey Park. They were so close, for those here in the Chicagoland area, most of you, I'm sure, to listen to us, they were close to moving to Addison.
Right?
Do you remember that?
I do. Holy cow. What a flash. What a flashback. But yeah, I do. Sorry, I got a text. Yeah, I do. Holy cow. Yeah. I don't see them ever leaving. I just don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got way too much history in Chicago. It's too big of a city. Do I see them moving buildings? Maybe. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. And again, I'm all for them moving to the Bears location. They've got the parking, they've got everything set up, and I think they would be wise to do so.
Yeah, I will be. I'll tell you what. Kind of alluding to what I just said, the jury is still out based on how this organization has been trending in the last 5 years. I have major concerns. If in the next 3 years, Jerry, whoever says we're selling the team, someone comes in and buys the team, they see the potential being in a big market, and they move ballparks, they build something new, or they move to Soldier Field and they really invest in this team, my life changes dramatically.
Yeah.
Sign me up for that.
Yeah. I'm not leaving the Cubs and the national landmark that is Wrigley. However,
No.
I'm just not. But I can see people getting on board all of that. I think they were excited when, well, I mean, the hardcore fans were never excited that Comiskey was gone. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
With the lore that it had and all that stuff. But then when the new stadium came out, you're like, okay, let's see what they've got. And then they overbuilt, and then the whole steepness of the upper deck and all that stuff.
Right.
It's still very true, but they were one of the first to kind of like redo their stadiums. And I think they swung and missed. So I think to your point, if they're going to do it again, they've got to do it right. And now you have enough stadiums that have redone themselves in such a phenomenal manner that the White Sox at least have blueprints to follow moving forward.
Correct. Well, yeah, they going back um to when Guaranteed Rate or New Comiskey was built. I mean, people don't realize that that stadium was built right literally year or two before that new kind of new age stadium started to be built. They were, the way I
Yep.
like to explain it is, they were working off of old blueprints, right? And it wasn't until 2 years later, I believe, that Camden Yards, Oriole Park at Camden Yards, was built, and that was one of the kind of the new age stadiums. And they were a few years away from missing fitting more into the contemporary ballpark style. And if they just waited, maybe we're not having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think they jumped too quickly, or they didn't think it through, or they. What I believe is they didn't include the fan the same. I'm so
Mm.
much about the fan interaction. I'll be honest with you. I have gone to just one, but I drive by it every day. The Chicago Dogs minor league stadium. I
Yeah.
love that place. I was just telling Jordan, my youngest, I was like, I want us to go. And then a buddy of mine just texted me like an hour ago. He's like, I'm at another Dogs game. And it's the greatest
Nice.
stadium because it's so you feel like you're right there. Um, and to me, it's all about that experience. And you don't get that at guaranteed rate. You don't get that in, well, what was old Cleveland. You don't get that in those older ballparks. You don't get that at the Coliseum. You don't. It's that's the fan loyalty, but it's not about the experience. And if
Yeah.
you're going to get a whole new set, a whole new fan base, I think it's. Yeah, I'm fine with the retractable roof and all that stuff, but you want people there all the time. And if they're not winning, and if that stadium doesn't have that, like Camden has that feel, even Milwaukee, even though it's a little like it has the retractable roof, you still feel like you're right there. And that was
Hmm.
one of the newer or older new stadiums. It wasn't too much further after or later after the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken. But I like Milwaukee. It's not too bad of a stadium actually for being a newer stadium with a roof. But that Oakland one almost reminds me a bit of the Cowboys. It's just so massive that is it going to be too big for you to get a fan experience and enjoy it while you're there?
Correct. Like, at what point, I explain it this way. Like, at what point is me being so removed while I'm at the ballpark, is it worse than me sitting home and watching it on my TV? Like,
Right.
at some point that you tip the scale.
Yep. And being removed nowadays, all it does is this. It brings me right to this, and that's the last,
Ah,
and it's the last thing you want. Um, you want that fan experience to be memorable. And with being so far away and so back, the first thing I'm going to do is grab this. It just is.
yeah.
And I wouldn't want that as a fan. I'm so much about the fan experience that I don't want that. I would want like you said the Camden. I've been there. It's a great stadium. You just feel like you're at Pittsburgh, another great stadium. I still want to go to San Francisco. I still haven't been there
Hmm.
for that stadium.
Well, for folks that are listening in audio, he picked up his phone. He's saying his phone.
Oh, sorry, my
Yes, his.
phone, my cell phone,
You don't want to be going for the phone while you're at the ballpark, folks.
and that's cheddar.
Even if you did, you only have 15 seconds to do it between pitches.
Right.
So good luck checking anything. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in this week on the Crosstown Baseball Show. Good relocation and stadium talking again. Like I said, we'll follow that story and to continue to talk about that. Next week, we will kind of let this week play out for the Cubs and the Sox, see where they're at.
Ooh.
But folks, we are getting through June, and before you know it, we are hitting the All-Star break and the trade deadline. So there's going to be a lot to talk about, and we'll be on it. We'll be on it here on YouTube. We'll be on it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. So please, anywhere you listen to us, give us a like, give us a review, tell us how we're doing, tell us how great we are, tell us how much we suck. I really don't care. Just give me the feedback is all I want.
Right.
So we'll catch you next time here on the Crosstown Baseball Show. Until next time, go White Sox.
Go Cubs.
Take care.